Tracy Lee Hines was born on May 1st, 1972 in the Hoosier State and spent his formative years in Newcastle, Indiana. By the time Tracy arrived, his family had already devoted much of their life to racing. While his father, Jim Hines, raced stock cars and sprint cars, he was best known for his work in midgets, where he won multiple championships over the course of a lengthy career. Tracy's brother, Ted, who is with us here, over 10 years his senior, followed the same path. He too raced and won in sprint cars, but he is best known as a 3-time champion at the Indianapolis Speedrome and a winner of the night before the 500 Classic at Indianapolis Raceway Park. Tracy began his career in quarter midgets in 1978 in a car that had been used by open-wheel star Jimmy Vasser. He competed at the famed Big Z track on the southeast side of Indianapolis. It was a place where many Hall of Famers began their career and where Tracy told me some other drivers absolutely tormented him. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Because Jim and Ted were still very active, the family turned to the late Fay Gordon, the father of future National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Little 500 Hall of Fame driver Eric Gordon, to oversee Tracy's development. He moved away from four wheels for a time and turned his attention to BMX bikes with remarkable success. However, the urge to return to four-wheel competition was whetted when he saw Ted take the 1991 Thunder in the Dome Classic in downtown Indianapolis at the Hoosier Dome. When he transitioned to midget racing, he proved to be a quick study. In 1992, he was the Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis Speedrome, a year in which Ted nailed down his third straight title. Quickly thereafter, Tracy became a steady presence on the USAC Midget Trail. His first win came at 1996 at Winchester Speedway. As I noted in his induction into the National Midget Racing Hall of Fame, it stands as one of the most thrilling races I have ever seen. Just days before his remarkable triumph, he had been in the middle of an absolute inferno at Richmond International Raceway. In his post-race interviews at Winchester, the flash burns were still visible on his face. We learned a few things about Tracy Hines that night. First, he was clearly brave. Second, he was not intimidated by high-speed joints. But most importantly, he was a truly gifted racer. That lesson would be repeated over and over and over. Let's just offer a quick word about his midget racing career. In USAC midget racing, Tracy won 35 times. He had victories at the Four Crown Nationals, the Hunt Hunter, the Pepsi Nationals, and the night before the 500 to his portfolio. He also captured the 2005 Chili Bowl Nationals. Now let's talk about sprint car racing. He launched his career at a vastly different time. In his formative years, no one even dreamed about piloting a sprint car at 14 or 15 years old. And in some cases, there were some who were simply not anxious to offer a midget racer a sprint car ride. He would later say when it came to sprint cars, it wasn't all that easy to break in. He did understand that some thought it was hard to move up in a car that had more horsepower. So for Hines, even getting a chance came down to effective networking. It was more that midget people were midget people and sprint car people were sprint car people, Tracy said. But you have to remember that at that time in Indiana, local sprint car racing was pretty tough. It's like local wing sprint car racing in Ohio or at Knoxville or Pennsylvania. You just weren't going to roll in there and beat those people at their track every night. In the end, Tracy did not get a chance in a sprint car until he was 24 years old. But he got going in a hurry. He proclaims that he crashed a lot in those early days. And I'm just going to tell you, and I've told him this, I don't remember that, but I'll take his word for it. He did say that some of his early issues came on tight dirt bull rings. The big fast tracks, be they dirt or pavement, were far easier. And that in itself proved to be a silver lining. He feels that because he could win at Eldora, Terre Haute, or IRP, where he was an absolute master, that owners could forget about any miscues at Bloomington or Kokomo. But trust me, he figured out those places too. In the end, what made Tracy so valuable as a USAC driver in that time was his ability to win on both dirt and pavement. More specifically, in 1998, he scored his first USAC national win for Boyce Holt, and he never looked back. In 2002, he was the USAC Sprint Car champion, and all told, he won 47 national events, which stands fifth on the all-time list. Along the way, he added his name to the list of some of the great races in USAC inventory. The Tony Holman Classic, the Joe James Pat O'Connor Memorial, and the Rich Vogler Classic. And we can't forget his success in the Silver Crown ranks. By 2000, Tracy was the Silver Crown Series champion, and his tenure in the big cars matched his portfolio in every single way. He was successful on both dirt and pavement, taking races at the traditional Illinois dirt miles, such as Springfield and DeQuoin, and on fast pavement joints, such as IRP, Pikes Peak International Raceway, Gateway, and Homestead, Miami. Yet, the greatness of Tracy Hines goes way beyond mere numbers. This man was hands-on in every way. He wanted to know everything about his race car and was not content to sit passively to the side. He learned from master mechanic Jim McQueen, and he wore driver, mechanic, and constructor Mike Stryker out with his questions. The Phillip brothers at Advanced Racing Suspensions undoubtedly sighed every time they saw Tracy's number pop up on their phone. But this gave him the edge. And for him, the edge was what it took to win. To really understand what made Tracy click is to understand that his racing hero was Rich Vogler. He remembers watching his every move at Winchester. I looked up to Rich Vogler, he says. Everything about Rich was me. He was scaling his scars when he got out. He didn't interact with anyone. I mean, he was friendly to the people that knew him, but he was all business. He was always trying to win that race. That's all he cared about, nothing else. I watched him go out, the only driver that was working on his car, and sometimes I would think, this guy is a genius. Well, that's the guy that Tracy became. Sometimes it really is about the numbers. Hines was the USAC Super License Champion on 4 occasions, underscoring his success in all 3 national tours. His 91 combined USAC wins places him 5th all-time in club history, and he won at least one USAC national feature in 19 straight years between 1996 and 2014. Ironically, he did not win a race in 2015, but he did nail down the midget title, thus becoming a member of USAC's Triple Crown Club. Tracy was fast, smart, had great instincts, and lightning-fast reflexes. His work ethic prepared him for the next phase in his career. He moved from the cockpit to the role of competition director for Thor Sports, one of the longest, if not the longest, NASCAR truck team, and later he became operations manager for Thor Works Industries. One more thing. Racers tend to take 1 or 2 passes at retirement. They never returned to the racetrack again, or they became one of the biggest fans. Tracy has done something a little different that I think commands respect. He's become a true mentor and role model for today's racer. I have heard this over and over and over. When a racer is injured, he is right for them. Seven-time USAC Silver Crown champion Cody Swanson suffered a very serious foot injury in the offseason. Very serious. I called him and said, you might want to talk to Tracy Hines. Tracy had already beat me to the punch. I told Justin Grant, who won here last night, I called him, and I said, Justin, you don't win races forever. I'm not trying to be your dad. I'm just telling you, you've got to prepare for the future. He says, Tracy Hines has already called me and told me all of that. And that, to me, is still giving back to the sport. So how do you sum up his career? It's simple. Tracy Hines is unquestionably one of the greatest drivers in the history of the United States Auto Club. He is already a member of the National Midget Racing Hall of Fame, the USAC Hall of Fame, and today he becomes a member of the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. One of the greats, Tracy Hines. I've talked to you about 3 times in about 16 months in these deals. It's been a good run for you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for all the kind words. You know, nobody can get here by themselves, so it's obviously all the owners, all the family, all the mechanics, all the volunteers. Just like the volunteers that help with all. We have the same thing on the team. So can't always afford to have, must be USEC's wireless mic.
You've noticed that?
Yeah, it happens all the time. So, yeah, that's just the simple thing that I want to start out, just saying thank you to everybody, my family, my brother, you know, everybody that's been a part of my life.
You know, it's funny because your brother was, because of the age difference, was, you know, a little bit of a father to you as well. And I know he's very proud of you. And you have said repeatedly, you know, you made the decision to try to make it as a professional racer. Ted worked during a lot of that time he was racing, and you understood what the difference was.
Yeah, so like I said, to start out, he won the Hoosier Dome. At the time, I was just graduating high school, and I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I said, you know, if my brother can do that, I think I'm better than him. And that's what started it. The first year, I mean, at the Speedrome, we almost got in a fist fight. My dad took my side, my mom took his side. I knocked him out of the way to run second my rookie year, like 7 races into the champion, but he was in my way. So I moved him out of the way. He's ready to fight. And that's just started the competition of why I wanted to be the best. It didn't matter who it was against. And my brother did a great job of being a father to me and helping me along.
And I meant this sincerely, Tracy. I mean, you know this. Some of the greatest drivers we've ever recognized here, some of the drivers that you and I watched. One of the all-time greats. I remember talking to Bob East, and Bob East says, he looks at me and says, just tighten it up all you can. In other words, he had no input. He didn't know other, but you were not that guy. It was really important to you to understand what made these things go.
Well, yeah, as I started out, I didn't know how I could get better, but I knew the car needed to be better. I only had so much talent, so I had to figure out how to make the car better because I wasn't going to get any better. So that was just my goal, and love Bob to death. Started out with Beast cars, but you know he'd always give you like baselines, blocking it, and I wanted to know why. You couldn't just tell me how to do it. I wanted to know why. So that's when I started calling Mike Stryker because I was friends with Stapp. So then they said call Stryker, and then Danny Drynan, and everybody kind of taught me. It's like the difference became on pavement was scaling your car, working on it. Jim McQueen helped me with shocks. You know, we'd get just shocks and they wouldn't give you dyno sheets. And I'm like, but you guys dyno it, right? Well, yeah. And why do you dyno it? Well, we have this range. Well, okay. Well, if there's a 15-pound range, I want to know if this shock was, you know, because if you go win or run good, so then I would just keep repeating that pattern. And just, there's sometimes at IRP, we'd win a race, I'd come back in, here, Corey, I need to rebuild it. Why? Well, it lost 40 pounds of rebound. So I needed to rebuild it because I had to go win again the next time. So just different stages of it. I got to, you know, when we talk about crash a lot, I crashed a lot in the short track sprint car stuff. Right. Dick Newkirk gave me the first USAC ride. I crashed too much for him. He just couldn't handle it. So then I went back to Boyce, and then I was able to run good on pavement. But when I got to Rob Hoffman, he taught me about throttle control when it came to short tracks, that we can only do so much to tighten it up, and you have to do the rest. Donnie Schatz and I are buddies, and he talked about it with the new motor they're working on. The only thing a driver has control of is lifting up. And if you can't lift up and it doesn't change, And so that was the thing. My motors could lift up. I just wasn't lifting. So things that different mechanics over the years taught me that it's not all about the setup too. So in that was just the crave for knowledge that I wanted to keep always doing.
I meant to say something and I really forgot it, and it does bear noting, and that is, I gave you his numbers and his tremendous numbers. You said, forget this. This guy spent a significant amount of time in the NASCAR truck and what we then now call the Xfinity Series. So, your USAC numbers obviously would have been greater than they are, and they're still among the greatest ever. Regrets? Happy the NASCAR phase of your life?
Well, it turned out to give me a career now for the last 8, almost 9 years. So it was probably bittersweet because I started with Hoffman's just at the end of 2001. I got fired winning a race, took out David Steele, who later was still...
Announced that race.
Yeah, close friend, but owner said I took him out. Well, okay. So I won the race, got fired in Victory Lane, called Hoffman's. I said, I need a ride. And they had just fill-in drivers. And they said, okay. I went down to Salem, had fast time, ran second. So they're like, hey, we're going to hire you. We went the next year. I think they just broke my record. I had 6 top 3s to start the season. We led the points from start to finish. And then the next year I started NASCAR. So I started partial season in 2003 in NASCAR. So that run we had going, and that would have been great, got interrupted by 3 years of NASCAR. And I still came back. I won the 4 Crown. I still won for them, won Gas City, but I was always in a second car. Rob and I would laugh because Rob had Dickie Gaines. He's like, well, I don't have time to work on yours. That's okay. You guys do your thing. Gas City, we had one argument. He's like, I don't think it's going to work. Okay. Well, I ended up winning the race. So I thought my style worked for me. By then I knew, and plus, the guys that have went on, when you come back and not have to run points, you not have to be there every week, you can race a little bit harder. You just have a different atmosphere. But then I went on, came back. I was, NASCAR kind of lasted 3.5 years. It got to the point where the teams I was with weren't going to be able to win, and I wanted to win. So I was at the 4 Crown Nationals in 2006. I won the sprint car race, the midget race. Tony's handed me the big check, and I said, you have any openings? I'm ready to come back. And he said, yep, Josh is moving on. I'll hire you. I said, oh, all 3 divisions? He goes, yep. So I drove for him for the next 3 years, and that's where Donnie and Paul and I got to know the Outlaw guys too, not being a wing racer because I was with them for 3 years sharing a team.
Right. Pretty amazing career. Three big halls of fame, and a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody being part of this. As you get older, it is a piece of your history that you don't know what people think. You hear, we joked, you would announce future Hall of Famer. What does that mean? Are you really going to be a Hall of Famer? So for me, it was just, it was a business. I wanted to just keep stacking wins because that's how you got paid. I didn't want to do a regular job. My parents couldn't put me in engineering school, which I wanted to do, which ironically now I fill in as the engineer for the truck team. It's quite hilarious. It's a complete circle. But, it was just a piece of my whole life with Dave Calderwood helping out early on in '96 and then coming back after Tony's team shut down. Just the whole atmosphere and family that racing included. And that's why I came back. The truck team I drove for is why I came back, and I'm running the team and went on to director of operations for his whole company. So, and I still do both. I show up at the race shop every morning, go on his 10-block complex to my other office, help run the business, and then come back in the afternoon. And I wouldn't have had any of that if it wasn't for racing. From owners, one of the things I tell people when I first got to the business side, well, what do you know about business? You've raced your whole life. And I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. The whole time that I was racing, once I got into the mid-'90s, I kind of had the race car part figured out. So I needed the owners to help pay bills and just to get me the equipment, but they also were teaching me things. I mean, racing is one of the places you can be around multimillionaires that are just having fun when they're with you. So just ask them questions. And that's what I did. I just started talking to all these multimillionaires. I'm like, what'd you do wrong in business? Why'd you do that? Why do you lease that? Why do you have this employee? What do you do when, just inventory counts, just things that you wouldn't think of that I was asking. And then when I got to this business side, I'm like, wait a minute, I know all that. These guys, that was my college for 20 years, was talking to all these millionaires about how they did business. And it does work. Common sense pays, and Justin and I are friends. I help Justin with a lot of stuff. Not so much racing stuff. Now Justin can get in his own head, and I'll get back with him. Same thing with Chase Stockton. We're friends, and kind of the more the head thing is like, guys, you are that talented. Just try to figure out how to make it work.
He made a lot of things work, didn't he? How about this Hall of Famer, Tracy Hines? Congratulations, Tracy.